Good morning and welcome to the December 18th, 2018 Nicollet County Board of Commissioners meeting. Ask you to please rise for the flag pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, good morning, everyone. First of all, I'd like to once again thank our staff, Lynette Peterson, Jamie, and Ryan Crush for helping us out with the 2018 anniversaries of employees today. We honored 51 Nicollet County employees, 21 of them who had been here for 5 years, 14 of them who had been here for 10 years, another 4 celebrating 15 years, 7 folks who have been with the county for 20 years, that's back to 1998, 2 people for 25 years, 2 for 30 years, and 1 for 35 years. And we just want to thank them for their service, and again, thanks to the staff for taking time to make this an annual event before our last meeting of the year. Chair will seek approval of the agenda.
Move the agenda.
Second.
I think there's one amendment.
We did have an amendment that was added in the blue folder.
That actually is on the agenda. It's just supporting documentation in your folder. It's under the Drainage Authority, item number 5.
Okay, any questions about the approval of the agenda? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, it carries. Moving along to the consent agenda, is there a motion for approval?
Move the consent agenda.
Commissioner Kemp has moved. Is there a second?
I'll second it, Jack, but I would like to take out the Nicollet County Emergency Operations Plan approval, please, and have that as a separate item immediately following the consent agenda approval.
Which one are you asking for, Commissioner? I'm sorry.
Number 4.
All right. That has been removed for discussion immediately after. Any other comments or questions about the consent agenda? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, it carries. May we talk about the emergency operation plan
Yeah,
now?
I'd like to have Justin Block come forward and tell us a little bit about this emergency management issue. He's got a resolution, I believe.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Justin.
The emergency operations plan needs to be reviewed every year. It's part of our EMPG grant obligations is to have the EOP reviewed every year, and basically year to year, unless there's something major, which this year there was not, it was just a update of contact names and phone numbers, very minor changes in there. And every 4 years it comes around to the county board. I know you guys have approved it. Other times, this is just the first time that we've had a resolution doing so. I guess all of the counties in our region are starting to use a resolution to have the EOP approved by their boards, so that's why that is in there. Other than that, it's the same as you guys have been familiar with in the past. It's just I changed.
Justin, how many pages, how long is the plan? I mean, it's a big document.
It's big.
Yeah.
About that thick.
Yeah, and it's flexible enough so that we don't have to be, you don't want to make it's flexible enough so we don't have to review it every year. It just adopt it every year.
Correct.
Going on with these minor changes.
Correct.
Like you say with contact names, is that with Homeland Security and
Just everybody that's in there,
the system?
the county attorney's office, the board chair,
Okay.
my department, the sheriff's office contacts, everybody that has a name and number in there, I just go through it and make sure that everybody is still doing what they're supposed to be doing, that the EOP says, and update it as needed.
Okay, good, thanks.
Is that all you had, Jim?
Any other questions about this plan approval?
Mr. Chair, I'll move it for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second from Commissioner Kemp. Any further questions, comments? Anything else that we need to know? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, it carries. Thank you for your appearance here today.
Thank you.
Any public appearances this morning that we have planned? Seeing none, let's move along to Human Resources. Jamie Hafner is here to talk about fee schedule. Morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, board members and staff. Annually, we review our fee schedule. All of our department heads take a look at their sections and then submit to us any recommended changes to their fees. So in your packet, you will have the revised version recommended for 2019. It appears, and glancing through, there's some changes to the wetland fees, a lot more specific. Otherwise, everything else throughout the fee schedule is pretty minimal in changes, just a few changes in dollar amounts.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
could
Commissioner.
you go a little more about the wetland fees?
Is Mandy, you gonna speak to that?
Sure.
Grab a chair. Morning.
Good morning. The wetland fees, when I would receive an application, I was finding it hard in the older way we were doing things to find how it applies. We were doing it on more of a time or acre, not an acre basis, but more on how much time I spent on it, which was a little bit difficult to try to apply. So it makes it more straightforward. When people send an application, they know exactly how many acres their parcel is and how many acres, they have an awareness of how much those fees will be. So I think it's more upfront and more straightforward for people to know what fees are going to be attached to that particular application.
You have a question about that, Commissioner?
Well, I'm confused. What are they doing with the wetland that there's a fee?
So what typically happens is, say somebody wants to put in a quick trip or development of some sort.
Okay.
And if there's no development there previously, needs to be examined for wetland resources.
Okay.
Say there is a wetland. So I will get an application that tells me where the boundaries are and all the data that was taken to record that boundary.
Okay.
So I'll review that. The project may proceed with that wetland getting filled, and then there's another process for that, or they might decide to, change their development pattern a little bit to avoid those wetlands. But there's still a review and approval process that I have to go through, so that takes time.
And if they did fill them, they'd have to pay for acreage somewhere else?
Right, there's
Okay.
usually mitigation
Yeah.
of some sort.
All right, thank you.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you.
Feel free to hang around, we might have other questions. Looking at the probation piece, maybe Jamie or the county attorney might be able to answer. Under EHM, adult, it's $20 down to 18, and then EHM cell phone, $12 a day to $12.50. What are we talking about here?
EHM is the electronic monitoring, so ankle bracelet, and I'm not sure why there would be a decrease in cost other than maybe the provider has decreased the cost. And I know that they're improving technology so that one of the impediments for people utilizing the electronic monitoring is the lack of a landline. And I believe now they're implementing some technology where you can use it through a cell phone.
So we're not issuing cell phones?
No.
No.
It's the technology to do it.
Right. Thank you, Michelle. Abstract certification is going up from $50 to $75. New abstract from $75 to $100. Explanation.
Mr. Chair, that would be the county recorder's office. She did not indicate to me, I don't know if she did to you, Jamie, why, but
No.
my guess is I know recorders typically communicate throughout the region on what they charge for fees. And my guess is that probably puts us more in line with neighboring counties who still do abstracting.
Okay. Under record ease, web access, spelling problem with the first occasional. Booking fees under sheriff from $10 to $15. Is there an explanation?
Not sure on that one either. Sure, it's not here.
That's charged to the folks who are being charged, correct, Michelle?
Correct.
Correct.
I know people are taking notes for answers to come later.
Mhm.
Human Services Child Care Licensing Fees.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I did look at that one and talk to Cassie about that, and looking at an email from her. It looks like, starting January 1, she says the county is not allowed to charge our own fee, and the clients will pay $50 for their own background check and then for fingerprinting. So this must be a legislative change that starts 1/1. So they're just responsible now for the background check and fingerprinting.
I appreciate your answer there. I was concerned about the word fingerprinting. What are we doing there? What are the rules?
Fingerprinting is done so that a background check can be run.
On the people who are providing.
Correct.
Correct.
Part of the criminal history.
Correct.
Pardon me?
Part of the criminal history assessment.
I take it you've never had a background check done on you?
Not yet, but year 23 on the county board, you never know.
That happens, you know.
Right. Any other questions from other commissioners regarding these fee schedules that we're talking about?
Mr. Chair, I'll move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Are you going to read the I'm looking for it here as my computer is going slow. Are you going to read the resolution?
Don't have it in front of me. Well, that might have it. I can, yes. Do you have it?
Here, I have it.
Thank you for allowing me to ask those questions. I just want to make sure that we're understanding and on the same page. EHM stands for Electric Home Monitoring, correct? Yes. Haven't had one of those either. So.
Yeah, it's a brave new world. Yeah.
It's a brave new world. Jamie, if you would.
Yes. So there's a resolution for the 2019 Nicollet County fee schedule changes. Whereas pursuant to Minnesota Statute 373.41, the County Board of Commissioners may charge fees for services provided by any county office, official, department, court, or employee. And whereas on February 1st, 2011, the Nicollet County fee schedule was adopted, which includes mandated fees and fees to be set by the county. And whereas the department heads have reviewed all of their fees for 2019 and presented recommended changes along with the completed proposed fee schedule in a public hearing on December 18th, 2018. And whereas the Nicollet County Board reviewed the proposed fee schedule and changes, now therefore be it resolved by the Nicollet County Board of Commissioners that the 2019 Nicollet County fee schedule as presented has been approved effective January 1st, 2019.
You've heard the motion, you've heard the second. Are there any other questions?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
The 9/11 address signs and the other fees, the last part there, are those similar to what other counties have?
I'm sorry, where are you looking, Commissioner?
After solid waste.
It's page 4.
Yeah.
Mandy, or can you answer that question? It's under yours.
The ones in black are mine anyway.
The 9/11 address signs.
Yeah. That's the fee that's for the installation and the actual purchase of it. So we assign the address and then it's forwarded up to the assess department for his guys to actually install.
I know, but are these similar fees in other counties?
Yeah, as far as that, we have not, that's been the original adoption when the 911 program went into place.
Oh, okay.
That was what was charged at that time. It's just kind of
Okay.
kept up with it. I believe it's sufficient for our purposes as far as our legal other counties. I don't know that.
Okay. And then below that, the after-the-fact variance and the special scheduled hearing, are those in line with other counties?
We are below other counties.
Really?
We have every couple of years increased the cost. We didn't want to have a significant jump, but we are getting closer to other counties.
Okay, all right.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
it was brought to my attention we didn't open a public hearing.
We are conducting a public hearing on the fees. Thank you, Madam Attorney. Are there any comments from the public regarding the fee schedule that we are considering at this time for 2019? Any members of the public who would like to provide input on the fee schedule for 2019 that we are considering at this time? Maybe we'll close the public hearing and then we have a motion on the floor. Is the order okay, or do you need another motion at this time?
Given that there wasn't any public testimony, I think we're still fine with the original motion.
Thanks for your reminder, ma'am, Attorney. What do we gather in fees on an annual basis in Nicollet County? Does Jackie know the answer to that, or Ryan, do you have a sense of what those numbers are? We just went through it in the budget, I'm sure, but I can't remember.
I can look here while we're going through the meeting. It might be in my budget information. I can maybe talk to that when we get to the budget piece.
I remember it being there, I just don't remember the number. Okay, any other comments to the motion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, it carries. Thank you, Jamie, for your help.
Thank you.
Finance. Heather, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board, staff. I'm coming in front of you today to discuss a drainage system fund balance policy. We had discussed it in one of our workshops and since then have done some revisions. So you have the policy in the attachment. The attached policy is recommended to be approved by the board in order to comply with state statute 103E.655, paying drainage system costs. The policy follows statute, charging interest to drainage systems which hold a negative cash balance. Charging interest will begin in 2019. Upon completion of the fiscal year, Finance and Public Services Office will bring to the county board for consideration a resolution that identifies the negative drainage system fund balance and the need to temporarily advance funds from the general revenue fund to bring the fund balance to zero. The temporary advancement of funds begins with fiscal year ending 12/31/18. Are there any questions on the policy? Just some background, I worked with Michelle on some language changes since our workshop, and it's been reviewed by Ryan and Jackie and myself.
Okay, you've seen the report, you have it in your packet. Are there questions for those who are here who would like to ask? Commissioner Kemp?
Madam Attorney, was there anything deviated from your original input?
No, it follows my
It's
original
consistent
input.
with how you interpret state statute.
Correct.
Nowadays being what, that's all you think.
The intent will be that once a year, they'll bring forth specific dollar amounts to advance from the general fund to pay for these balances.
And then that's the trigger for whatever interest is borne
Correct.
based on that fund. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I think I should abstain since this will affect me personally.
I don't know if you
No,
need to abstain.
It's a general impact on all residents, so I think you are. There's not a similar conflict if it were a specific ditch provision. It would be much like the assessments that might be provided for road improvement in the county, generally speaking.
And what happens if I vote no?
Depends on how the others vote.
Correct.
The folks who are landowners around these ditches will be informed of this change or are aware of how it works now with changes?
I believe that they will see it on their statement. Is that correct, Jackie? Within there?
When we levy them and I bring them to the drainage authority for the levy part of it, they all get an itemized list of what the expenses are, so they will get a notification when they're levying.
So they're aware. Well, it's on paper someplace.
Right, when they're levied, they'll see the charges that are sent, and those are always available to anybody that wants to see their individual charges anytime.
Any other comments or questions to the drainage system fund balance policy that we need to approve here today?
Mr. Chair, just a reminder that this is state law and is very clear, and it's something that our auditors have recommended for a long time that we do, and many other counties are already doing it, so we're coming into compliance with state law with this action.
That is correct, and part of our corrective action with our auditors upon our last fiscal audit was to address this.
Any other questions to the policy? We have a motion at this time?
So moved.
Second.
Drantle and Kemp moved. Comments, concerns? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
It carries 4-1. Heather, thank you.
Thank you.
Moving right along to property services. Andy, are you ready to report? Morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I had 2 items before you, and I'm not exactly sure which one is first on there. But I'll start with the approval of the watershed implementation payments. This is kind of the wrap-up for our Houston Engineering Grant, which we did the PTM GIS grant project, and this is basically at the end of December 31st, our grant will be done with it. So what we have to do per the grant agreement is just have occasional approval of the bills that we have paid out with it. So this is the second to last agenda item you will see for this grant, and it totals in the amount of $4,340.63. And I just request approval of that dollar amount.
Madam, Mr. Chair, I'll move approval.
Thank you, Commissioner. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Kemp, second. Comments, questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
As opposed, it carries. Thank you.
On a side note, that the story map is in the process of being placed on our website. So if you get a chance, you can see all that information that's been gathered by Houston Engineering and then how it's going to be used in more of a storyboard format. So that'll be easier to understand. The second item I have for you is the AG BMP low interest loan project for our septic and well activities. This is for the amount of $76,850.74. This is for 6 liens on properties within the county. Just to note, 5 of them are for septic system upgrades and 1 is for a well sealing and replacement. So that's the first one that the county has issued with this program. We do have a couple of pending ones, but they'll take place next spring as the weather gets better with it. But I'm just asking approval of those lien attachments.
You've heard the recommendation. Is there
Mr.
a
Chair,
motion?
I'll make a motion and I have a question.
I'll second.
Stenson and Lipke. Commissioner Stenson?
This Ag BMP program basically has taken place of all of our other loan,
Correct.
septic system loan, as I remember.
Mhm.
And I remember under our old programs, we used to have a limit of $10,000. So this is for the actual cost of septic, there's no limit, or?
There is a limit within our admin plan. We topped it off at $30,000, so that would allow if someone needs to replace a septic system and a well, that there should be enough room to do that.
Okay.
With the AG BMP program itself, with the Department of Ag, there's a $200,000 limit.
Wow.
So that's more in line for like purchase of agricultural equipment and machinery with that. But with our purposes, we felt $30,000 was enough to get it going.
Okay, so with the approval of this, they will advance the money to us and then we pay the bill, or how's this done? How's the logistics done?
Just as in our other loan programs, the county pays it out and then we get reimbursed from the
Okay.
state. And Department of Ag is really good. Within a day or two after I
Oh.
submit the bill, they're sending it back.
Okay.
For the record, do we need to read this resolution onto the record or not? I didn't think so. Thank you. Any other comments, questions to the motion in front of us? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
As opposed, it carries. Thank you, Mandy. John, would you like to come forward with your item?
Gary's number. See, Oshawa's 10.
Morning.
Good morning, sir. So I just have the one item for you this morning, the request of applicant property owner Steve Michaels for a conditional use permit to expand an existing swine feedlot. I would note that Mr. Michaels is in the audience with us today. The property is located in Belgrade Township and is zoned agricultural preservation. The proposal involves the removal of 4 existing hog barns, 1 open lot, and also an earthen basin. In place of that, 1 new total confinement hog barn would be constructed. The replacement barn would measure 122 feet by 168 feet and would have a 10-foot deep underfloor manure storage area. The proposal appears to meet all the setbacks and standards for development in the Ag District. We received no public comments, and there was no public testimony at the hearing last night. After due consideration, the Commission voted unanimously to approve the request. Mr. Chair, staff seeks a motion to approve the request and the attached findings of fact, sir.
You've heard the report. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Lipke, Commissioner Kemp?
There we go.
I remember the day. I've been around long enough that we used to be concerned about what things smelled like. You don't have that issue on this report?
No, sir. No,
I grew up on a farm, Steve, so.
Yeah.
How are they controlling any of those types of odors?
The odors should decrease with the removal of the basin and the improvement in the new building as well.
Mr. Chair, there's 2 open lagoons in my area, and when the wind is right, you smell them. On the barns, you just smell it when they're pumping.
I have a question, Mr. Michaels. Apparently you're gonna build your new barn first, or are you gonna?
The existing barns will be tore down this winter, is the plan.
So then you don't have any hogs then this winter?
No,
Oh.
there's not big on the place, no.
Oh,
You might get used to that.
I thought maybe you would build a new barn so that you'd always have hogs on, but, okay.
No.
All right, any other questions, concerns? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, it carries. John, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Michael.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Morning, Seth. Public Works.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board and staff. One item from Public Works today is to consider road designation revisions with the expansion of Highway 14 from Nicollet to North Mankato. It's resulted in several of our county state aid roads being severed and actually dead-ended. There's also several pieces of old trunk Highway 14 that are being turned back to the county. And so those need to be designated as county state aid highways. The severed routes, they do not serve a county state aid purpose anymore, and so MnDOT state aid office requires that the state aid designation be rescinded on those segments. When a segment is rescinded on the state aid system, we will get to bank that mileage and someday be able to redesignate that on potentially another highway that would meet the criteria for a state aid road. So the revisions are proposed as follows. Old Trunk Highway 14, which is near North Mankato, designated as a portion of CASA 6. It's about 1.26 miles. Another piece of Old Trunk Highway 14 that we'll be receiving in the city of Nicollet, we'll designate that as County Road CASA 42. It's about 0.57 miles. State Aid Road 25 from Trunk Highway 14 to CASA 17. We would remove the CASA designation on this. It's about a half mile that gets removed, redesignated as County Road 58, 0.47 miles. State Aid 6 from Trunk Highway 14 to CASA 41, we remove that state aid designation, which is about 1.12 miles, and redesignate that portion as County Road 54, which is about 1.04 miles. Included in your packet are 6 resolutions for the board's consideration that makes these revisions. And so I'd be more than happy to answer any questions on this item.
Commissioner Kemp?
Seth, on the CASA 25, CASA 26 reassignment, those are the items that go back into the bank?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yep.
I just
Correct.
want to make sure
Correct.
I understood that.
Yep.
When we take action, do we take action separately, Madam Attorney, or can we do it jointly?
I think on this you can do it jointly.
Another question?
Is that your recommendation when we get there?
That would be fine.
That's fine.
Commissioner
Yep.
Lipke?
This is all county to county, and it's not, nothing is going to township or city.
No, not at this time, but after these revisions are made, I think there's further discussion that'll have to be made on the two portions that we're designating as county road, as they are dead-end segments, and do they provide what you would see as a county road function at this time. They're providing very, very localized traffic, which would lend those segments probably, they should properly be on either local streets go to cities or townships. And so that'll be a future discussion.
Future discussion,
Yep.
I think. That's good.
I would move the resolutions.
We have a motion on all 6 resolutions from Commissioner Kemp. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Lippke has seconded. Discussion? Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, they carry.
Thank you.
Do you have anything else for us today?
No.
Jack, I'd like to get Seth's comment on an issue.
Oh, certainly,
Okay.
Commissioner.
I talked with Daryl Pettis the other day,
Oh, sure.
and he's the county administrator of Lee County.
Oh, yeah.
And he was telling me that they have made an agreement with MnDOT to turn 112 from Lee Center to Lee Sewer to back to the county, and it will be County Road 22. And he said that MnDOT is gonna give them the money so they can reconstruct the whole road, apparently, right?
I believe that reconstruction's already
Is it started?
started, I think.
I don't know. Well, anyway, so my question is on MnDOT's section of 22 from St. Peter to 111, or 111 to St. Peter, whichever way you guys talk about going west to east, what's the status of any conversation with MnDOT with respect to that highway? And the other point is that I suppose MnDOT usually likes to give the road in a deteriorated to the county, and then they just give us the money rather than they reconstruct it and then just turn it over.
It's been done several ways depending on where you are in the state. There's been just very, very preliminary discussions. There is some interest by the DOT to have further discussions about a potential turn back of Trunk Highway 22, but a meeting date has not been scheduled
But
at
you would
this
want
time.
enough money to be able to make sure that we would have enough funds to be able to do that, so the county doesn't have to pay for that reconstruction.
Yeah, there's usually two different ways you can go on a turn back. You can agree to an agreement on a lump sum payment, and so you execute the agreement, you've come to some resolution on what the fixes are going to be, you've assigned a dollar value to that, both parties agree to that, and they cut you a lump sum check. Now you get into construction and something unforeseen happens, or you need to add something else, you can't go back to the state at that point and ask for additional funds to deal with that. The other option is to agree upon a scope of work for the entire project, and you attach a draft cost estimate to that, but essentially what you're doing is agreeing to the scope of work that'll be done. If unforeseens are encountered on the project with an agreement like that, it's more open to be able to allow additional funds to come in to deal with those unforeseen issues. With a project as large as Trunk Highway 22 can be, I would see that as a project-based agreement and not a lump sum payment to take care of that project.
Okay. Good, thanks very much.
And if I can just add, the past discussions on Trunk Highway 22, or if the county was to entertain taking Trunk Highway 22, it'd be a full reconstruction of 22 with concrete pavement, and the state would have to take our County Road 23 from Trunk Highway 14 to Judson as a state road.
And then, of course, they don't provide any monies at all for future maintenance either.
No. Future maintenance will, once the project is built and it's turned back to the county, then the county is 100% responsible going forward from that point.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Chair, could I add on to this conversation?
Yes.
So if you do make a deal with them, try and get them to take 37 also.
Yeah, we've had discussions about 37 since they're investing the significant dollars in the Trunk Highway 14,
Yeah.
15 river crossings. I highly doubt that the state will take the county up on.
Even though it goes from one state road to two other state roads.
Correct. They're making a very large investment on the Trunk Highway 14, 15 crossing, and so they're not going to want another crossing at that
Who
point.
owns the bridge?
Which
On
bridge?
37?
We're jointly owned by the city of New Ulm and the county.
50-50?
Yeah.
On the topic of 22, you've been here 10 years.
Yes.
And I know that those discussions have been going on with the state for many years. It seemed at the last workshop you were indicating that the state might be moving closer to at least the ability to discuss this with some ideas that would be favorable toward our county.
In the past, turnbacks were usually funded solely by the turnback account, and the turnback account is grossly underfunded for the amount of turnback trunk highway mileage that exists out there. There's been some policy shift within the DOT that if they are planning some type of project on a potential turnback, that they will take what they would be investing in their project, take those funds and marry them with turnback dollars to get the project that the local entity wants to be able to make that turnback happen. And so they have programmed some funds out here in the future for, I believe it was a mill and overlay on Trunk Highway 22 for maybe the tune of around $5.5 to $5.9 million. A full reconstruction of 22 would be much more than that. And so they would take those funds, those 5.5 to 5.9 million, and marry them with Trunk Highway turnback dollars to make a project happen. And so that's been a policy shift within the DOT over the last several years.
Yes. Any other questions for our engineer?
Thank you, Seth.
Thanks for your 10 years of service. You were honored here earlier today.
Yeah, thank you. It's gone fast.
All right, now we have a public hearing later on, so we could move on to, you want to move on to some other items at this point, or what are your
Yeah,
wishes?
Mr. Chair, what I would recommend is that we open the Drainage Authority meeting, and our viewer is here for item number 5, I think just number 5. So I would suggest that we jump to that and do that item, and
All
then
right.
we can break before the hearing.
I'd just do the 2 extra items, that would be, they're very short.
Okay.
Chair is recessing the board meeting, calling the Drainage Authority meeting to order. And the first item is the approval of the consent agenda. Is there a motion?
Move the consent agenda.
Kemp has moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Dranto. All in favor or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
As opposed, it carries. Now we're moving to, which one are you here to speak to?
If I could address 4 and 5
All right, Jackie, good morning.
now, that would be great. Item number 4 is set the 2017 crop damages for the 62A improvement project. We are still working with INS with the damages for 17 and 18, and it would be in our effort to try to get 17 out ASAP, but we do need the Drainage Authority to set the amounts for crop damages for those payments. And as recommended by Chuck Brandel, ISG, the engineer of the project, he's recommended the 17 payments be $585 for corn and $570 per acre for soybeans. And that would represent similar to what other counties in our area have also approved for 17 crop damage.
Okay, so you hear the report of $585 for corn and $570 for soybeans. Is that the recommendation?
Yes.
And you're asking the board for action?
For approval to do for a motion to approve that.
Chair will accept a motion.
I have a question before we start there, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead, Commissioner, I'm sorry.
Under statute, is there a position that a property owner could take that did not accept that number?
I would have to go back and review the statute for setting that crop damage.
Okay. Well, I'm just
There's likely
asking, is there the ability for the property owner to have some other form of review?
Generally speaking, there would be.
But it'd be district court?
Probably, yes.
Yeah, okay. I just want to make sure that they were. Other than that, I'd make the motion, Mr. Chair.
There's a motion, is there a second on the numbers that we have before us?
I'll second, and I think it's maybe a little generous on soybeans, but it's okay.
Motion and a second for the numbers that you have heard here today, 585 for corn, 570 for soybeans. Discussion, comments? Any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, it carries.
Thank you. Okay, so item number 5 is, I'm asking for the board to consider approval for redetermination of 5 more ditches: County Ditch 4A, County Ditch 13A, County Ditch 3A, County Ditch 48A, and County Ditch 51A. These ditches are in alignment with ditches that we have previously worked on. I apologize, it's not in your online packet. You should have copies of it.
We've got it in our agenda additions.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Lynette. So you can see the map that I included in there. The items in pink, I believe, purple, pink, are the new ditches that I'm recommending. The order will also appoint Mark Behrens, Robert Hansen, Kendall Langseth, Joe Muchler, and Bruce Ness as the viewers, and also Jones, Haug, and Smith Engineering Firm to determine the watershed. I do have in the audience Mark Behrens, our lead viewer. He's also here if you have any comments or questions. But we will, some additional information. We'll be wrapping up the previous ditches that they are working on and finishing those shortly after the first of the year. We currently have a second informational meeting set on those for January 17th, which will then follow by the formal hearing. So we'll be wrapping up that. So we'd like to get going on another batch of those. So in your packets or on your copies, there's orders for each ditch that I am looking for approval on.
Let's take questions from Commissioner Stenson first.
Well, Jack, I'm entirely in agreement on these ditches, but I would like to just make public some comments about 3 of them, as well as I'd like to have Mark understand some of this, and maybe you could look into my comments that I'm going to make about these as you do this or you get ready for it. So I will approve the 5. They're called resolutions, right? There's 5 orders, or
You want to move?
I move them,
You have a motion from Stenson?
and then I'd like to address them.
Is there a second to the motion?
So moved.
Commissioner Dranto. Comment?
Okay, on ditch 13A, to the east of 13A, there's Oak Leaf Lake. And there's a watershed there, of course. And Oak Leaf Lake currently would, there's a drainage ditch that empties into 13A. But Oak Leaf Lake doesn't have, it's not a county ditch. And so 13A apparently accepts water from Oak Leaf Lake, but there's no charge to any of the property owners on the watershed on Oak Leaf Lake. The problem this summer has been that Oak Leaf Lake is not draining. The weir there, or the outlet, has been plugged with growth of trees and brush and weeds. And so neighboring farmers lost 25 acres of soybeans because of the overflow of Oak Leaf Lake. It's gone over its banks. And the DNR doesn't even have Oak Leaf Lake on its radar very much. Nobody knows anything about it. There's always seems to be always something else that's going on that they don't have, they don't understand that. So the question is, it seems like nobody's responsible for that outlet, but the tenant and the landowner are in a quandary here with that, and it could continue if we continue to have these high water. So that's an issue that I think needs to be addressed somehow. And Mark, I just want you to be aware of it, okay? And then on 33A and 51A, as well as any drainage onto Robards Creek, which is north of St. Peter, the county, in connection with the city of St. Peter is driving this maybe more than anybody else, is that we have a committee and we're meeting and we're calling this Project 33. It's an effort to look at these two ditches to try to apparently slow the water down as it runs down the bluff line towards the new high school and to the flat sandy area north of the high school and the city park there, and to the new housing development Traverse Green. So the city of St. Peter is interested in maybe providing some money and direction to see if there's a way that to control the outlet of those two ditches to minimize a flushing of the water at a certain high water time or big rain down into that area of the school and north of the school. So, Mark, as you look at those two ditches, I think you should be aware of this Project 33 and maybe contact the committee that's working on that, which would be Todd Prafke and Marie and maybe Seth, yeah, whoever's in the business of the water here. So I just wanted you to be aware of that. Okay? That's all I have.
Any other comments to the motion that is in front of us at this point in time? Anything else that we need to know? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, it carries. Do you have anything else for us right now, Jen?
I do not, just our public hearing at 10.
So you'll be back.
I'll be back.
Why don't we take it, Mr. Greenwood, do you have something?
There's another item number 3 under the Drainage Authority. That's Nate's item.
Yes.
Nate's not here today, but I can pinch hit.
Would you please? That way we would have that one taken care of. Thank you. I was wondering about that. Go ahead.
So item number 3 is to consider approval of our culvert removal form. Danny Boysen on County Ditch 9A has a crossing on the county ditch. The culvert is failing. He does not need that crossing anymore, so he's requesting permanent removal of that culvert and crossing. So I'm asking the board today to approve the removal of this.
For the request of the engineer, is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Litke, Commissioner Kemp. Any comments, questions, anything out of the ordinary here? Seth?
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
That's relatively new form that you haven't done with the culvert.
We've been using this form probably for a couple years now, a couple, 3.
And it's working well?
Yeah, it works real good.
Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, to do a permanent removal of these crossings, there's certain parts of the statute that you have to comply with, and going through this form assembles all the information needed to
see that nobody can come back 4 years from now. And
Yep.
okay.
Yep.
All right. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, it carries. We are on a 7-minute break until we have the public hearing. Resuming our Drainage Authority meeting on this December 18th. Procedure for the public hearing on the preliminary engineer's report for improvement on County Ditch 77 Lateral 2. Chair will open a hearing on the improvement petition, introducing you to Jackie Copeland. Jackie?
Good morning, Chair and members of the board. On September 29th, 2017, a petition for the proposed improvement to Nicollet County Ditch 77 Lateral 2 was presented to the Nicollet County Public Service Department. The petition was reviewed by the county attorney, Michelle Zender Fisher, and approved by the board on October 24th, 2017. Chuck Brandel, INS Group, was appointed as the engineer for the project and was instructed to draft an engineer's preliminary report. The preliminary report was submitted to the board on October 24th. Wait a minute. The preliminary report was submitted to the board and the hearing was set, and I have the wrong date on there. I'll have to see when we set that hearing date. And it was set for 10 o'clock today. The notice of the public hearing was mailed and posted on November 29th, 2018, and the notice was also published in the paper on November 29th, December 6th, and December 13th, 2018. The purpose of today's hearing is to review the engineer's report and take testimony from all parties to determine whether to proceed with the project or dismiss the petition. I also want to note that the petitioner's bond is still adequate for this project and in place.
Jackie, thank you. The chair will now call upon Chuck Brandel, ISG, to present the preliminary engineer's report. The statutory components of that report are found on Exhibit A. Morning, Chuck.
Good morning. So I've got a short presentation on the report. Everybody should have a handout. I just want to note that we did have a meeting with landowners right before harvest to go over. We went over some details, questions, made a few minor modifications before we submitted the report. So landowners have, a few of the landowners that attended have seen that previous to this meeting. So we're at the preliminary engineering report. We're here to obtain feedback from landowners, check if the project's feasible, practical, cost-effective, necessary. There are two options that we have included in the report. You can approve both of those if you'd like. I'll give my opinion on a recommendation, but we can continue with both options if you so choose to. So County Ditch 77, this is lateral 2, which is separate from that, but it was originally part of County Ditch 77, which is a 9,700 acre watershed. Lateral 2 is 1,750 acres of that. And it has approximately 70 feet of fall throughout the watershed, agricultural row crops, clay soils that need artificial drainage. Originally constructed in 1964, you had 14,000 feet of open ditch on lateral 2 and then 9,000 feet of buried tile. These plans are probably impossible to read on the screen, but these are the plans from the 60s, and this is where we got our naming of some of the branches. It necessarily doesn't match everything that's on record, but this is what we used as naming for all the branches within the system. So here's the CD77 watershed. Lateral 2 is over here on the southeast side. Zooming in there, we did look at and survey portions of 77 outside of lateral 2 for our hydraulic analysis to see if the outlet was adequate. But the project consists of looking at, in section 35 and 36, there's an existing 28-inch and 24-inch tile that connect two open ditches. And it really acts as a long culvert because you have open ditch to open ditch. We typically size tile for about a half-inch drainage coefficient. Because this is connecting overland flow, bringing it through a hill, the petition was to get this to a 1-inch drainage coefficient, which is a little different than other tile, but the section of tile is acting as a long culvert. And I'll zoom in on the plans as we continue on through the report. The existing tile through this area is relatively shallow. According to the survey and the records that we have, there's portions that are less than 30 inches of cover on the tile itself. So another goal of this improvement is to get some depth on the tile and gain depth on the ditch. Like I said, capacities are below our recommended capacity, and that's because we're connecting open ditch to open ditch. Here are the original capacities of just the main line tile. There are some branch laterals shown in the chart, but those are not being proposed to be improved at this time. Let's see if I can zoom in on this. Actually, I'm gonna jump out of the report. Well, and zoom in on the plan. So as we zoom in on lateral 2, it outlets into ditch 77 in section 35. The lower portion of the open ditch, you also agree with me, has been cleaned this fall. It was not cleaned when we did our survey, and we did show that it needed to be cleaned, but it has since then been cleaned. The improvement starts at the tile location. So this 28 and 24 inch tile are being proposed to be upsized and deepened. And then the lateral 2 open ditch would be deepened to the end of lateral 2C, and then deepened north until the Al Schmidt driveway, and deepened approximately 2 to 2.5 feet through that section. The outlet of the culvert or tile between section 35 and 36 would be lowered about 30 inches in that location. I'll jump to that plan here shortly.
Excuse me, you're on Al's driveway now?
What's that?
You're on Al's driveway where that goes underneath it?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, that's where we're proposing to end the improvement.
Okay.
So zooming in, this dashed line represents the existing tile, and it's zoomed out quite a ways, but it is in the handout. There's about 2 feet, 2.5 feet of cover over the portion of the 24-inch tile. Working with landowners, we were originally going to do a 36-inch tile all the way through. We could not get adequate cover on the 36-inch tile, so we went to a 42 at a flatter grade to get the capacity that we need, and we're able to get 4 feet of cover in the lowest spot on the 42-inch tile, and then a 36-inch tile at a steeper grade, which ends up gaining our 2.5 feet, and then the open ditch will be deepened further to the east. We're going to verify, if this is approved, we're going to verify the cleaning elevations to make sure that we still have positive grade from where our outlet is planned. According to landowner testimony now, the existing tile is above the water elevation, which would correspond to what we found for cleaning depths needed through this section. We did look at an option 2. The DNR does like to see storage as part of improvements. So option 2, instead of replacing the tile completely, we would replace part of it with a 36 and then put a pond in the low area. It really could have gone north or south of the tile, needing the storage area to offset some of the peak flows. But then it would be a 36-inch tile, no 42, and the pond would decrease some of the peak flows. You can see the 42 at a flatter grade gets you to that 1-inch drainage coefficient, and then the 36 coming back up is a little bit better than the 1-inch drainage coefficient. For installations like this, we allow HDPE or concrete. Any private tile could be connected up with what we call inserted tees. I believe most of the low areas already been system tiled, from what I've been told, are tiled and is connected directly into the ditch. So the new tile would act as a conduit from one side to the other. We do have some intakes called out, and we will use water quality intakes where we feel that they're necessary or required. So, I won't show that. Also included in the project is temporary and permanent damages. We have under option 1, we have temporary damages for where the tile would go. And then there are some temporary damages for ditch spoils and small permanent damages for widening the ditch. If option 2 were chosen, there'd be about 3.1 acres of permanent damages for the pond area. So that is included in the cost estimate. This is the preliminary hearing. We don't need to approve separable maintenance, but we would like to potentially use that at the final hearing. This is the first time that we've heard that the tile outlet is free. So if investigation of the tile is needed, that could be done if the project moves forward at this time, to investigate the condition of the existing tile. We have seen tile of this age typically has offset joints, reductions in flow. Landowners have told us that there is a concern with the flow on the tile, but every time we've been out there, it's been full of water, so we haven't been able to see it. So, to verify the condition of the tile. We did verify the condition of the ditch. There's sloughing on the ditch, there's erosion on the ditch, so there is separable maintenance or repairs that would be needed on the ditch portions that we're proposing to deepen. At this point, we're not asking to approve separable maintenance, but it would be something, if this project moves on to the final, that we would look at. For option 1, if the system were fully repaired, the area that's being proposed to be improved, you'd have about a $305,000 cost for that. The improvement is $492,000. There's some minor road authority costs. And then we included that there will be, as part of the redetermination, some buffer strip acquisition. We would ask that the buffer area not be seeded until, if the project moves forward, not until that is done, because we will be getting some spoils out of the ditch and placing those in the buffer areas. Not an improvement cost, but I'd like to include that would be there so the landowners know what their potential cost could be. Option 2, when you add the pond, you do reduce some of the tile costs, but the project cost goes up to $637,000 from $521,000. So it is more costly if you did storage. Moving the material, buying the land is more costly and under option 2. Skip over road authority. If the project were final approved, the existing tile would be abandoned. We typically run 20 to 30 feet away from the existing tile, connected in a few locations, but assume that it is done with its useful life. So,
when you say abandoned, do you just leave it there, or do you go in and take it off?
We leave it there. I usually figure the cost to remove it and place that concrete in the landfill is something that we don't need to do. Where tile is failed or filled in, like as shown, we will crush it in spots and fill that with concrete. So essentially you have a dead part of the tile. That way, as it fails, it doesn't continue to suck material. If there is some useful life left in it, we will connect it into the existing, and it can act as a private header. So, but the connection to the open ditch on the east would be blocked. So the outlet would be just the new tile. So. As part of the statute, we need to look at multi-purpose drainage management. That includes many things like preventative measures, control measures, treatment measures. We include looking at grass waterways, buffers, wetland restorations, two-stage ditches, alternative intakes, different side intakes. We put together multi-purpose drainage management plan. Included in that is option 2 with the pond. There are many areas where landowners could do controlled drainage as part of the project. There isn't many other opportunities. This is a fairly small improvement. You're looking at a tile and then deepening a section of open ditch. Any inlets into the open ditch, we could use alternative practices for those, for any tile, for any overland inlets to the open ditch. So if approved, we would consider those in the final engineers or the more detailed engineering plans. We'll skip the DNR letter for later. One of the DNR's comments is they prefer option 2. In my opinion, both options are feasible, and with option 1 being less expensive, I believe we could move forward with that. This is not the final hearing, so you don't need to make that decision at this point. I highlighted some of our flow rates from our detailed analysis, and this is where lateral 2 dumps into the main open ditch, so the outlet of lateral 2 into 77. At that location, the 2-year event shows a 12% increase in peak flow, but the outlet is adequate to handle that. It does not come out of the banks, it does not cause additional flooding. And then when you get up to the 25, 50, and 100-year events, which are usually the events that cause flooding, the project has anywhere from a 1 to 4% increase in peak flow. That's well within our margin of error in modeling. So essentially, we're not seeing an increase in peak flow downstream. And I can go over these in more detail. When you look at the elevations downstream, the greatest increase in elevation, we ran all the way down to the outlet. You look at 2/10 difference at the 2-year event, which is well within the banks. Once you get up to the 25, 50, and 100-year events, you're looking at 0.06 of a foot difference. So really, it's negligible, the flooding characteristics with the proposed project. So when you add in the pond, those numbers go down. So the pond makes it better. The proposed improvement doesn't change the outlet conditions downstream, in our opinion. So a lot of the larger improvements that you've seen, like I'll just take 62A, there you saw substantial increases in peak flow with the proposed improvements. That's why we recommended a pond on that project, where here we're not seeing that. We still put it up, we still did the comparison to show what it would take, excuse me, what it would do to the outlet condition. But in this case, the extra cost may not be warranted. I did get a few comments from Mrs. Zender Fisher. I did just submit a minor amendment. All it did is clarify where we've got the names of the tiles and the names of the laterals. It was from one of the plans that we were given. And I talked about this already, that we could look at the condition of the existing tile to prove separable maintenance. Every time we've been there, this is the tile outlet, it's been completely full. So, but since the cleaning, I think that has changed. So it could be viewable now. You can see some of the erosion on the lateral 2 open ditch, some of the plant growth, and just need for upkeep. So, so there is some proof of separable maintenance, even though we don't need to approve that at this time. So, there's also, I believe, a redetermination of benefits is currently being done It's our opinion, based on past projects and past watersheds of this size, that the project would be cost-effective and feasible. That needs to be determined based on a redetermination of benefits. But we'd recommend approval of the report at this time.
We need to hear from the DNR report. Jackie, would you be so kind as to provide that information to the board?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The DNR response letter dated November 13th, 2018, addressed to Jackie Copa at Nicollet County Drainage Authority, 501 South Minnesota Avenue, St. Peter, Minnesota 56082. The subject is County Ditch 77 Lateral 2 Improvements, Preliminary Engineers Report, Nicollet County, Minnesota. Dear Ms. Copa, on behalf of the directors of the Division of Ecology and Water Resources on the Department of Natural Resources, the MN-DNR, I offer the following comments on the Preliminary Engineers Report, the PER, for the project referenced above in accordance with Minnesota Statute, Section 103E.255. Of general concern in all proposed ditch improvement is the cumulative effect that the project may have downstream water resources, natural resources, and property owners in terms of quantity and quality of water that is received. Project-specific and cumulative impacts from ditch projects can result in downstream flooding, erosion, and a decrease in water quality. For these reasons, we urge careful evaluation of the project to ensure it is consistent with the prior concerns identified in Nicollet County Local Water Management Plan, the Water Plan. The Water Plan includes priorities for stormwater control, drainage, and watershed restoration and protection. The Water Plan emphasizes the use of best management practices to control erosion and reduce excess nutrients from entering surface waters. During peak flow periods, examples spring runoff from agricultural land can be reduced through the use of cover crops. Cover crops help retain topsoil on the land, improve soil structure, aid in infiltration and storage of the soil moisture, and improve water quality. The retention and health of topsoil is vital to long-term agricultural production. The use of cover crops in the watershed would reduce the need to expand ditch systems, stabilize ditch and stream banks, and decrease the frequency of ditch cleanouts, resulting in lower landowner costs for ditch maintenance. The Agricultural BMP Handbook for Minnesota has been developed by the Minnesota Department of Agriculture to address water quality impairments. The document provides a review of 30 conservation practices that are designed to enhance agriculture's role in addressing water quality concerns in Minnesota. Engineers' reports should include the appropriate BMPs for the project, and landowners should be encouraged to implement them throughout the project areas. The Agricultural BMP Handbook for Minnesota can be accessed and viewed in the following link at the www.mndastate.mn.us. Our agency recommends further consideration be given to addressing issues associated with the proposed project in the final engineer's report, the FER, to be as indicated below. Number 1. Page 5 indicates a 2.9 acre storage basin can be included as option 2. Option 2 will hold approximately 11.5 acre feet of water before overtopping into an overflow weir. The storage basin is modeled to minimize outlet flow to similar flow rates as the current conditions. In order to have an acceptable plan, option 2 needs to be retained in the final engineer's report and be part of the approved plan. Number 2, the FER should indicate that option 2 will include putting the storage pond into a permanent easement as part of the ditch system in order to allow for sediment removal and maintenance. Please contact Kevin Mixon, Regional Environmental Assessment Ecologist, at 507-359-6955
6073 or an email at kevin.mixon@state.mn.us. If you have any general questions about this letter, sincerely, Jim Seal, EWR Assistant Regional Manager.
Thank you, Ms. Gopet. Mr. Brandel, do you want to wait on your response to the DNR until after we open up the hearing? You've already given some response.
Yeah, well, I can give a brief response if that's all right. We do use the BMP handbook. You saw that we did call out and look at some of the multi-purpose drainage management. And as to the pond, you know, we do, that is a feasible option. I think we could look at further discussions with the DNR. You could approve both options, I guess, at this time. But I think the cost, from my opinion, the cost and the effect downstream can meet the statute without it. But we can work with them further.
All right. Chair is now going to open the public hearing to take testimony, comments regarding this preliminary engineer's report. Bruce Sellers is here at the hearing today. Do you wish to give any public comment at this time?
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. Chuck, I just want to ask you, I think you were clear in your opinion, but you believe the proposed project is feasible?
Yes.
And in your opinion, is there a necessity for the proposed project?
Yes.
And did you consider the environmental land use and multipurpose water management criteria in section 103E015 subdivision 1?
Yes, we did.
And in your opinion, the proposed project is of public benefit and will promote the public health?
Yes.
And your opinion is that the outlet is adequate?
Yes. Yep. With both options.
With both options. I would argue that the preliminary engineer report meets the requirements of section 103E261 subdivision 5 and would request that the board proceed in ordering that Mr. Brandel complete a detailed survey and appoint viewers and move forward with the
Thank you,
final
Mr.
hearing.
Sellers.
Thank you.
We appreciate your appearance before the county board or the drainage authority here today. Chair opens this up now to public hearing. Anyone who wishes to testify at this point, please come forward, have a seat. If you could give us your name and address for the public record. Good morning.
Morning.
How are you today?
Good.
Good.
Al Schmidt, 39243, 561st Avenue, New Ulm.
Morning, Mr. Schmidt.
I've got land on the upper end and the lower end of this ditch. And I'm also the dividing line between lateral 2 and 86A. And why were we only given a half-inch coefficiency on this underground back in 1964 when it's open ditch to an open ditch? My understanding was back then is the owner of the land over there has his driveway right there and he didn't want an open ditch. Shouldn't we be allowed to have an open ditch there?
Mr. Brandel, do you want to tackle that one?
You could, yes, you could. I mean, that could be, you could have petitioned for that, and we could look at that as an option. That is why we sized the tile the way we did, assuming it was like a culvert on an open ditch, that it had the same capacity. That's how we looked at it, because when you look at the driveway and road, it does act as, there is a high point there, and you look at the profile, you could see it. You've got open ditch with this big high point, and there's a low point in open ditch again. So it, an open ditch could be looked at. As per petition, we looked at a tile replacing a tile, but we're treating it as if it had the capacity of a culvert.
There's 13 feet of fall from one end to the other, correct? On that tile?
Seems like more.
12 or 13?
From on just the tile itself?
Yes, that 1,600 feet or whatever.
Yeah, let me get it exactly.
But we can't get our water from point A to point B. And they gave us a half-inch coefficient back in 1964 on the acres that are benefited, the acres figured back then that are benefited for lateral 2. But if you look in, Chuck, can you bring up section 25?
Sure. It's about, what we're proposing is about 8 feet of fall. Right now, it's more like 10. So.
Okay. Up in section 25 on the northeast corner of my property, there is a 8-inch tile coming in, or going out. It's not my tile. But when the water backs up east of me and north of me, it flows backwards into County Ditch 77. I've got 2 8-inch intakes side by side, and we can't move our water away fast enough because we're taking water from 86A and dumping it into 77. Shouldn't we be getting credit for some of that water? I did mention this to Ron, the viewers. The fall of 2017, they were out there viewing, and I ran into them on the road. I think.
I was along.
Yep, John Lipke and Nate Henry were out there too. We looked at the lower end of that ditch. They had all kinds of other ideas about putting a county tile and stuff in there, but I don't think that's the answer right now. Right now, what we need is a bigger outlet, and we need some depth because all of our tile are coming in way on the bottom of that ditch. As soon as it gets half full, 3/4 full, or plumb full, we don't have any push to get rid of our water.
All right,
Can I just add a little bit? When we looked at the model, we did include some flow from 86A that factored into when we looked at the capacity and the effects downstream. I think if this moves on to final report and viewers are appointed to look at it, we can document the area of overflow so they can review that to give a determination if there's anything from a outlet fee that should be looked at. So,
But
that's
that
something
really
could
brings
be
our
done.
half-inch coefficient down to what, a 0.4?
Yeah, it'd bring you that the numbers that I have only include what's in lateral 2.
Correct.
So it would reduce your capacity.
And we've been dealing with that for a long time. I don't know when that 8-inch line was going to the east, but it's a long time ago.
Can we take that into consideration, Chuck?
Yes, yep. We did as an overflow after talking to Mr. Schmidt, and I think we can at least show an area that goes to that 8-inch tile when we give some of our engineering information to the viewers.
All right. Anything else, Mr. Schmidt?
Downstream, there is a 5-foot, 60-inch. Is that correct?
Yes.
Downstream where they cleaned?
Yep, yep.
Upstream, under my driveway, there's a 48-inch. But our exit point for this water is 24?
Correct. Yep. So we're recommending a 36 at a very steep grade.
Right.
So we're not fully opening the floodgates, but we're significantly increasing your outlet.
Option 2 with the retention ponds. I know the DNR loves retention ponds, but if you go and look at the lay of the land up by me, by Kenny Fliggy, Lawrence Wishted, or Kevin Fliggy, Larry Seibel, Doug Crowell, Kenny Hauser, we got so much flat land up there already that's natural retention ponds. And if we're not gonna add any new intakes, open intakes, we've already got retention ponds.
All right, thank you. Any other public comments to go along on our preliminary hearing here today? Please come forward. Please state your name and address. And we're happy to hear your comments.
Tim
Morning.
Weibel, 45438 541st Avenue, Cortland. My property, Chuck, if you bring that up, please.
Yep, I'll
It
zoom
would
in on
be
it.
the outlet to the ditch, right there it is. Couple of concerns I have, so the existing tile you said you're gonna keep in there, what happens when that tile continually fails in years to come? I'm in charge of always maintaining that, or if I wreck equipment with it falling in on a certain spot?
Yeah, well, if you would like that abandoned, we could, as part of the project, crush it in a few spots and abandon it so you don't have to worry about it again. If there'd be a minor, essentially there wouldn't be, if it collapses in, instead of a tractor size hole, it's gonna be a couple shovelfuls.
Mhm.
So,
Okay.
so that's something that if you, as the landowner for that property, if you want, if the project moves forward, we could do that. Probably 4 or 5 spots along the line, so you don't have to worry about it.
That would be something I would really like, because I just, in time, it's gonna fail, it's concrete, it's, it's just gonna happen. And then the holding pond, situation there, I have a lot of money tied up in this property, and if this is something that needs to be done, I don't object to anything, because there's so much, I get tired of the fighting about water and everybody's nitpicking and crap like that, but, all I want to be is treated fair. And if my property gets taken for that, I want to be compensated for it. And I have told Chuck how much money I have in the land, and it's a significant amount of money that I have tied up in that property. We talked about the seeding of the buffers. Nobody told me not to seed my buffers. My buffers are seeded. And I know the person right downstream from me his is seeded too, because he seeded mine for me.
Yeah,
the
and
pipe-
I'm talking to the east, the buffers to the east, not
Oh,
to the
okay.
west. Yep.
And then one thing do you need to put, so when you put in a tile down in the flat on my property, there's 2 pipe that come up, like a breather pipe or whatever you want to call them.
Mhm.
Do you need to put them in there?
I don't necessarily need to put them in through your low area. This is a short enough stretch. We would like to televise the line, but you could televise it from both ends. So we don't need to put that intake in if you don't.
That'd
want
be
it.
something, because the bigger equipment gets, the harder it is to work around.
This it's somewhat of a unique situation that you've tiled to the open ditch. Typically, when we have low areas like this, we put in a new tile, we'll put an intake, because landowners will want a way to
Mhm.
get into the public system. You can get to the ditch within 500
Right.
feet, so.
Right. Yep, and that's what we did when we tiled. We
Yep.
went straight. And then one concern I have too is we talk about the water moving away. On County Road 5,
Yep.
In a heavy rainfall, I've seen that water right up to the edge of the road. The culvert underneath the road actually was restricting. Granted, that was a heavy rainfall, but it seems like every year we do get a big rain event now. And I'm just wondering if that tile is big enough, because what it's gonna do is restrict all the flowage of all the water coming in, including the water from our end, my water included on that.
Yeah, County Road 5 is outside of lateral 2. We did look at it and look
Oh.
at the capacity, and that's showing, that we're affecting it by about that much, which is, very minimal.
Okay.
But yeah, we did survey it and include it in our analysis. It's not part of the improvement, so we didn't recommend
Yeah.
upsize it, just saying that we're not changing it significantly, so.
And again, I just want to state for the record that I'm not opposed to anything. I just want it done, that everybody is treated fair and compensated the way they need to be. So,
Jim,
thank you.
how often do you have a pond there on rain events?
This year, we did not, but this year was the first year that we had all of our tile in place that we put. We did it, anyway, it was the first full year with this being tiled this such, and I think that helped some. We've had ponding in there Probably pretty close to every year since we've owned it, and we've owned it. Come on. 4 years? Something like that?
At least.
Five, maybe something like that, so, yeah.
I see. All right, anything else?
Nope, thank you.
Any other public comments on our preliminary engineers report here today? Please come forward, state your position, give us your name and address.
Could wish him a happy birthday. My chair.
All right, so the chair will now close the public hearing. If there's any suggestion that the board will want more information moving forward to a final vote, the board may wish to consider leaving the public hearing open to allow for future public comment without having to renotice the next meeting. What would be the recommendation of the attorney on that?
That's for the board. If the board needs additional information before proceeding, then that would be something to consider. I'm not hearing any suggestion that there's missing information for this particular hearing.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner.
Are we gonna have some discussion here?
I'm going to be asking for a motion and
Okay.
discussion. Is there anything else, Chuck, that you'd like to add to your report?
Yes, I'll just comment, by deepening the ditch, we are getting a little bit more storage in the ditch itself also, by deepening it 2 to 2.5 feet on the eastern part of lateral 2. So that was accounted for in our model. You heard the landowner's concerns that their tiles are underwater. That was what we observed when we were out there every time. So.
All right, Mr. Sellers, do you have anything else that you'd like to add? Bruce?
No, thank you.
Okay. Any other public comments before we close this hearing? Madam Attorney?
I think you closed the public hearing, I think, already.
Oh,
But,
good.
just 2 points. I just wanted to ensure that there had been an adequate time to respond to the DNR's report. Were there any additional comments to the DNR's report at this particular time?
Not that I have. No.
And then the other would be that, to see if Ms. Copit has the corrected date, just so that that's part of the record about when the preliminary report was submitted to the board.
I do, it's October 24th, 2018.
October 24th, you said? Can you make that adjustment within that?
And I don't have anything further. And then, once the board engages in its motion and discussion, then I would recommend taking a break to finalize the proposed resolution for the board's discussion.
All right, thank you. Motion is in order regarding this public, this
Mr. Chair.
preliminary.
Mr. Chair, Chuck, you said you'd like it, the motion would be better to have both options in there?
I think that's up to you. Both options are feasible. I have not had discussions with the DNR. We got the report and the recommendation. I have not, typically before the final engineer's report, I talk with them about options, meet with them and go over effects downstream.
What's the wishes of the landowners?
Option 1.
I move, we proceed with option 1.
Is that correct, Chuck?
Yeah.
We have a motion, is there a second? We have a motion, is there a second?
I'll second that for discussion purposes.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. The questions the board must consider in determining whether to order that detailed survey and detailed survey report are attached in Exhibit B. So let's discuss the motion in front of us.
Mr. Chair, question.
Yes.
What force does the DNR letter have with respect to option 2? I mean, they don't have authority to force us to have option 2.
I don't believe we need any DNR permits in this case.
No, we are outletting into another county ditch. We don't need a permit from a public water standpoint. In my opinion, we're not negatively affecting any public water, so.
And how much additional costs would option two? Because Tim sounds like he wants $100,000 an acre.
Um,
I'll take it.
Take it.
It's about $115,000 more.
Okay.
I can't remember the number we used for land acquisition, but I can check. 12,000 is what we used.
Okay, well, that's a situation that everybody's gonna have to share. And Bruce, your petitioners, do they want option two or not?
I don't believe that there's any interest in option two. As a practical standpoint, I guess I'd like to know from Chuck how much additional cost it would add to have that option. I think it would be my personal feeling, just looking forward to any, if there were any potential appeals, to make sure that the record is complete. I think it's maybe something that the board should at least hear from Mr. Brandel and consider, but he'll recommend his option, then it's ultimately up to you which one to choose.
In other words, Mr. Chair, the way the motion reads right now, if he goes and prepares the next report, he wouldn't have option two in it.
Right.
And we could decide at the next next hearing, to drop option two if we wanted to.
Can I add something to that? We've already done the detailed hydraulic modeling. We have not received any significant comments that change anything. So
There's not too much.
there's
to
not
it.
too much extra work to include it. There isn't much for us to change. We have to do some investigation on the tile condition and on the open ditch, so.
Mr. Kevin?
I'm just letting you know.
I do have one question. Mr. Schmidt made reference to an open ditch option or a discussion that he had. Is that germane to this discussion? Or is that an option that we need to consider? Or are we comfortable, I guess I should ask Mr. Schmidt that also, are you comfortable with the issue of the increased volume that he's added in the replacement design to meet the needs that you've discussed? Obviously, the issue with that 8" to 8 or 8" to 86 was a separate issue.
I think I know your question. How many dollars is the open ditch? If you went with an open ditch?
Well, we're gonna have to pay Tim for that.
You'd have to pay land acquisition costs. What I have seen with, call it the past 5 years of increased land sales, it used to be a 42" pipe was very close to the cost of an open ditch. In this case, the open ditch would be more expensive than the pipe option because of the land acquisition costs. You'd have a lot of land acquisition through the hill. And we may, with the driveway there, we may even need to adjust the alignment a little bit further south. So you'd have it'd be more expensive, in my opinion, without running the numbers, but just based on past other projects, it'd be more expensive.
Would that change the capacity of the overall system significantly?
It would all depend on
What the volume
what
is
size
coming up.
culvert we put under the road.
Okay, okay.
So, because that's our restriction at this point. So, you could match the same culvert size or capacity.
And then it's moved, right?
Then it's moved, yep.
And so we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion, or what direction are you
I
folks
wanna
looking?
follow up with Denny. I wanted to make sure that Mr. Schmidt, with this project is because it seems to me that you indicated quite a problem with water backing up. I don't like water backing up. It should flow the other way, right? So you're gonna handle his problem?
Yes, yep, and when we look at, let's see if I can pull it up, we start looking at some of the differences in the water surface elevations in lateral two. We'll just pick on the Schmidt driveway.
Okay.
We're reducing the flood elevations on the 2-year event by almost 4 feet. So this is a significant improvement, but a lot of that is that we are just lowering the outlets. It's not that we're increasing flow. We're giving you a lot more capacity in the ditch itself and lowering that starting water surface elevation. And that's reflected throughout all the way up to the 100-year event. that upstream of the improvement, we have feet of elevation gained on the flood events, which is the difference between your tiles being forced outlets in some cases and not, and your land flooding and it not, so.
Now, this culvert under the road, that's 461st Avenue, is that the culvert you're talking about?
Yeah, it's a tile, it acts as a culvert.
Tile.
Yeah.
And you don't want to increase that size?
We are proposing to increase that size.
Okay.
Right now, it's a 24.
Yeah.
At
Alright.
at a flatter grade. We're proposing a 36 at a steeper grade.
Yeah, okay.
And the only reason we upsized to a 42 is we flattened the grade through there to get cover over the top of it. Otherwise, a 36 would have worked, would have had been the same capacity through, but we flattened it in the low spot to get some cover. That way, the long-term life of that tile will be increased.
Do you people think that that's going to be adequate for how you understand the system is going to work?
Larry Seibel and I, we grew up with this. You moved there about the year it was put in, correct?
I moved in there in '65.
I was 6 when it was put in, so I remember how it worked back then. But as time went on, we realized there were problems, but we didn't know what the problems were. And we added more tile, more tile, more tile. Well then, Larry's had his equipment across my land about as much as my equipment. Then we realized we got water coming backwards from,
Yeah.
we're taking 77 water and 86A water. We need a bigger outlet. And I think, according to what Chuck comes up with for the diameter we need, I don't know if we can go any bigger. But I'd really like a 42.
But don't we lose
got
cover then
48
issue?
upstream.
But we lose cover, and then we also start dealing with increased peak flows downstream.
Right.
So it's a balancing act. Most of the studies, most of the information on productive crops and hydraulic studies say a 1-inch drainage coefficient will adequately drain tile and surface water. With that goal being that you have flooding less than 36 to 48 hours, so you don't kill a crop. So now you're still going to have some restrictions on your existing tile.
Right.
We're assuming everything's getting there in our model, so we're being somewhat conservative in our design.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Question? You said that there's gonna be at least 4 feet of cover over this proposed tile?
Correct.
What about in that steep area?
In the steep area?
I mean, I'm looking ahead 50 years, because as are all these people, that land will move a little bit off the high ground.
In the steep area, just a touch here.
Be a very good sledding hill.
Yeah, in that area we're close to 20 feet deep, so we're about, we've got about 16, 17 feet of cover in the deepest spot. There's a lot of elevation difference from the low area, which is at 83, to the high area, which is at about 1,003. You got 20 feet of fall just through that hill.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion on Commissioner Lipke's first motion?
Well, Mr. Chair, I'll move to amend his motion to include option 2.
You've heard the motion. Is there, on the amendment, is there a second?
Can I second, or does it?
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Commissioner Kemp, discussion on that. What does that provide us?
Well,
Just
he's saying
four
that
options.
it's
Carry
the other
another option
option
forward.
that we can then decide at the next hearing, and he'll include that in there, and he said it's not gonna take much time to keep that option in there, and we can have a further discussion about it. Landowners should think about it. Petitioner's attorney should think about it and see what they want, and then if the DNR says Well, if the DNR says you have to do it, well, I don't know, you don't have to, but, so let's just leave it in there. That's what I'm thinking, John, it's not gonna hurt anything.
That's fine.
Can I add one comment
Yeah.
to add to that? The viewers could consider it, and based on the cost, it may not be cost effective, so it may get,
Right.
it could get
Bumped anyway.
bumped that way.
Right.
So,
Further comments on the amendment? Further comments on the amendment? Let's vote on the amendment. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, it carries. Now on the full motion? Or do we just, yes?
The amended motion.
No, you have to vote on
Vote
the
on the
amended
amended
motion.
motion, correct?
Because you just voted on the
Amendment.
amendment to the
Amendment
motion.
right.
Right.
So, any other discussion on the full motion, which has been amended?
Yes.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, it carries. Are there any other items that we need to take care of on this, Madam Attorney?
Now, I would specifically ask the board to also vote on each of those. The motion has been made and adopted, but to go back and consider each one of those questions fully.
On Exhibit B?
On Exhibit B, and then I would ask for a short recess in order to be able to prepare the specific findings for consideration and adoption by the board.
Who will be so kind as to read the questions? Will that be yourself or Jackie or who?
It would need to be the board member making the motion.
Oh,
All right, taking item number 1, whether the petition was properly filed.
I make that motion.
There's a motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Lipke. Comments, questions, concern on whether the petition was properly filed? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Was opposed, carried. Whether proper notice of the preliminary hearing was provided to all persons required under statute.
I would make that motion.
Motion by Kemp, second by Lipke. Comments? Questions, concerns? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
It carries, thank you. Number 3, whether the proposed drainage project will be of public benefit and promote public health after considering the environmental and land use criteria in Minnesota Statute 103E.015 subdivision 1, which are as follows, and we will note each factor below contained in the preliminary review. Private and public benefits and cost of the proposed drainage project. Alternative measures, including measures identified in applicable state-approved and locally adopted water management plans. 2, 1, conserve and allocate and use drainage waters for agricultural stream flow augmentation and other beneficial uses. 2, reduce downstream peak flows and flooding. 3, provide adequate drainage system capacity. 4, reduce erosion and sedimentation. And 5, protect or improve water quality. Item C, the present and anticipated land use within the drainage project or system, including compatibility of the project with local land use plans. D, current and potential flooding characteristics of property in the drainage project or system and downstream for 5, 10, 25, and 50-year flood events, including adequacy of the outlet for the drainage project. E, the effects of the proposed drainage project are on wetlands. F, the effects of the proposed drainage project on water quality. G, the effects of the proposed drainage project on fish and wildlife resources. H, the effects of the proposed drainage project on shallow groundwater availability, distribution, and use. And I, the overall environmental impact of all the above criteria. Is there a motion to that effect?
Make the motion.
Second.
Commissioner Kemp and Lipke. Discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, it carries. Whether the outlet is adequate. Is there a motion?
Make the motion. Second.
Lipke and Kemp. Discussion.
Yes, I got a question. What's the outlet fee?
Outlet fee?
Yeah, is
next
there a
ditch.
fee
The-
to 77?
The viewers would determine what that is as part of the redetermination.
What has it been now? I mean, do we know?
I don't know.
I don't know off the top of my
Yeah.
I mean, is it $1,000 a year or what?
It's probably a percentage. Typically, they're set up as a percentage that if 77 has a repair, that lateral 2 pays
Would pick up 10%.
3%, 10%, whatever it is. So
That's what would be the outlet fee, so it's not a
Correct.
stated amount every year, it's just whatever the expenses are.
that's typically how it's set up from my past experience. The redetermination would reset that.
Okay.
And they would look at the flow amounts, and it may, the improvement may change it slightly. That if we're increasing flow by 4%, they might increase the amount by 4%. So
Okay.
the viewers do look at that.
Okay, but you said that the outflow is not gonna be very significantly different.
No.
Yeah, okay.
Does that satisfy your question,
Yes.
Commissioner? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, it carries. And number 5, whether the proposed drainage project outlined in the petition or modified and recommended by the engineer is feasible. The board needs to clarify whether the project the engineer is proposing is that an outline of the petition or whether the engineer is proposing changes. So we just have to do the first.
You just have to do the first one, correct?
All right.
Want to restate?
Whether the proposed drainage project outlined in the petition or modified and recommended by the engineer is feasible.
Move it.
Is there a motion, Kemp and Lipke. Discussion? Questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Good. Now, where am I here, Madam Attorney? The board is going to need to clarify.
Now, I would recommend a brief recess so that I can
Okay.
finalize the findings based upon the.
You've heard the recommendation of the attorney. We are in recess until we get the findings back. All right, we'll resume the Drainage Authority meeting. First of all, the Drainage Authority must appoint viewers. Do you want to do that one first, or do you want to do the whole findings of fact?
I would ask for a separate motion to appoint the viewers based upon the ordering of the preliminary engineering report. The viewers are identified as Ron Rehnquist, Charles W. Anderson, and Brad Wick.
That is contained in the findings of fact. That recommendation is before us. Is there a motion for
I'd move the
approval?
appointment of the viewers as
Second.
indicated.
Thank you, Commissioner Kemp, seconded by Lipke. Questions, concerns, comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, it carries. Now, the Drainage Authority has had an opportunity in our recess to take a look at the findings of fact on the order of Drainage Authority to improvements for County Ditch 77 Lateral 2 in Lafayette Township. Chair will entertain a motion to approve.
I'd move the findings. Second.
Commissioner Kemp, Commissioner Lipke. Comments, questions?
The viewers listed in the order are different than the viewers we just approved.
No.
Rehnquist, Anderson, and Wick. Wasn't that what you said?
That's what it, yep.
Is that, that's what we just approved?
Yeah, I think
so.
that's,
Yes.
that's what I heard, Marie.
Okay,
Rehnquist, Anderson, and Wick.
okay.
Correct.
Yeah. Are you satisfied with that?
Yeah,
Okay.
I thought they were different, sorry.
I
we
thought
were
I
using
heard
the new-
something different
New
too.
people.
Right.
They're
Any-
for the new ditches that we approved earlier.
Okay.
Right.
Yep.
Any other comments or questions about the motion in front of the Drainage Authority? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, it carries. So, thanks to the folks for coming here today to discuss that county ditch. I will ask Jackie Copet to come before the Drainage Authority with more news or items.
Yeah, I
for us.
apologize.
No, that's fine.
In order to satisfy statute, I would like to amend the resolution prior to for the redeterminations, and that each ditch should have a motion to order the improvement. So we can do a motion for each ditch.
All right.
I don't understand, I don't understand what you want.
We did an overall motion to approve redetermination on all 5 ditches, and what we should have done is had a motion for each individual ditch.
All right, name the ditch. And
I'll
we'll-
name them, and you
we'll
go
call-
ahead and
we'll call
motion.
for it, right.
All right, County Ditch 4A.
Make the motion.
Second.
Motion by Kemp, seconded by Lipke. Discussion? Comments, questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, carries.
Redetermination for County Ditch 13A.
Move.
Second.
Lipke and Kemp, comments, questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
A redetermination for County Ditch 33A.
So moved.
Lipke has moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Question?
Yeah.
Okay, Commissioner, go ahead.
Do we have a deadline on getting all these done?
I don't believe we have a specific deadline. We are just moving systematically throughout the county, and some ditches may take longer than others. And then, of course, we'll have our joint ditches as well.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those
County
opposed,
Ditch
carries.
48A, sorry.
That's fine.
48A.
48A. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
Lipke and Kemp. Any comments, questions, concerns? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, carries.
And the last one is County Ditch 51A.
So moved.
Second.
Lipke and Kemp have moved and seconded. What number was that?
51A.
51A. Any other comments, questions, concerns? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those
Thank
opposed,
you. I'm
carries.
finished.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much. Merry Christmas to you. Congratulations on your 20 years or 25?
20.
20, my goodness, a young lady. I'll ask for a motion to, and a second to adjourn the Drainage Authority.
So moved.
Lipke and Kemp have moved. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, carries. Thank you very much. Moving back to our regular Nicollet County Board of Commissioner meeting, we are on administration. Mr. Crush?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A few items here that we address every December. The first one is the 2019 elected officials compensation and per diem resolution. State statute requires that the county board set by resolution the salary and per diems for elected officials for the following year. The resolution before you includes a 3% increase for county commissioners and up to a 4% increase for our elected department heads, depending on where they're at on the pay scale, and a per diem rate of $70 per day, which is the same as 2018.
All right, that is the recommendation on the elected officials'
I'll move it,
compensation.
Mr. Chair.
We have a motion from Commissioner Stenson. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Kemp, second. Are there discussion points here?
Is this a resolution?
Yes, there's a,
Oh, I see it attached. Okay, I missed that. Sorry.
Any other comments by board members to the items that are included in that resolution?
Mr. Chair, how long has it been $70? Quite a while? Or just a couple of years?
It's been there for quite some time, Commissioner. I think that that might be something that future boards might want to consider looking at.
Okay.
But it has been there, oh gosh,
6, 7 years maybe.
10, 12 years maybe.
Okay.
No, not that long.
So,
We'll ask the administrator to do some research as to when that was last changed.
thank you.
Okay? Any other comments to the ideas in front of us here in this resolution? Which include the county attorney's salary, the sheriff's salary, and the recorder's salary. Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, it carries. Mr. Crush?
Thank you. The next item is the 2019 tax levy resolution. Attached is a resolution setting the 2019 Nicollet County property tax levy at $21,943,934, which is a 3.79% increase from 2018.
You've heard the recommendation. This has been discussed in Budget Committee and in workshop. Is there a motion to that effect?
Move it.
Commissioner Kemp has moved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Lipke. Discussion. Discussion from board members on the 2019 property tax levy.
What would happen if it got voted down? Would you have to go back to the drawing board?
It would have to.
Okay.
We'd have to discuss. Lunch would be late today. Any other comments about the 2019 property tax levy? Please call the roll.
Kemp?
Yes.
Lipke?
Yes.
Stenson?
Yes.
Drentel?
Yes.
Kolars?
Yes, it carries 5-0. Thank you. Mr. Crush?
In relation to the levy, the board also needs to formally adopt a budget for 2019. The budget before you shows a total budget, balanced budget of $42,911,312.
You see the budget. We have a motion from Kemp. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Any discussion? This has been before the Budget Committee. It's been before the County Board in workshop. Is there any discussion on this item? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Kemp?
Yes.
Lipke?
Yes.
Stenson?
Yes.
Drentel?
Yes.
Kolars?
Yes, carries 5-0. Thank you.
Final item I have today, there's 2 budget amendments for the 2018 budget. These additional appropriations are for the sheriff's office remodel and our bond refunding or refinancing that we did earlier this year. There was never a formal budget established and approved by the board for these items in our IFS accounting system. So what I'm requesting here is that we include them in the budget. So essentially we're not overspending the board approved fund that was approved in the budget for 2018.
Are those 2 separate components, or do you need this all as one?
This can be one motion to approve, where I have the action requested, approve the $2 million appropriation to the county 2018 general fund budget and the $3,265,000 appropriation for the 2018 bond fund budget.
Mr. Chair, I'll move it and I have a comment.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Kemp. Commissioner Stenson, your comment?
Well, if we didn't do it, we would get a nasty letter from the auditors next year in our 2018 audit report. That's
correct. Both actions receive formal board approval, obviously, to conduct them, but they just were never formally approved in the county's official budget for the year. This takes care of that action.
All right, thanks for cleaning that up. Are there any other comments to the motion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Stenson?
Yes.
Kemp?
Yes.
Lipke?
Yes.
Drentel?
Yes.
Kolars?
Yes, carries. Do you have any other items?
Other than we're trying to schedule our meeting with our legislators, and that's proving to be extremely difficult. Looks like we're going back to the drawing board. We may be out of options for January and February based on their schedule and our schedules, so I'll see what we can do. Would the board object to maybe doing something later in the session? By then they might know their schedules better too.
What about a Saturday?
I don't know if they're around.
Well, typically they're off on Fridays, John, so I mean, that's why we've been doing it on Fridays. But
We might get fairly low participation from
Right.
department heads on Saturdays, but.
That's true.
Well, you'll keep working on that.
I'll try to do something. At a minimum, we'll obviously see them in February at the AMC conference, but just based on schedules, it's looking like January and February could be difficult or out of options, so.
Okay. Do you have anything else to share with us?
That's it today.
Informational items, assessor clerical error corrections? Who's gonna deal with that?
That's actually just by state statute. If there's any errors or cleanup that needs to happen on the assessment records, the county assessor is just required to provide that as an informational item.
Information, okay.
Right.
All right, thank you very much. Chair's report. Oh, first of all, yeah, I think, first of all, I'd like to do one thing. I'd like to have Commissioner Marie Dranto present to our retiring Commissioner Jim Stenson this item that hopefully they can zero in the camera on this so we can see. For your 20 years of service to Nicollet County,
I don't know, should we?
we thank you.
Thank you, yeah.
Wow. I didn't expect this. I thought you guys were gonna buy me a meal, but.
We're gonna do that too.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So, better open the box though.
Yeah, well.
Is it gonna jump?
Might.
Yeah.
Is it gonna bite?
It'll be
It's heavy. Oh, look at that.
Oh,
Nancy, see this?
not yet.
Yeah, hold it right in front of
State of Minnesota.
Maybe Casota Stone.
Minnesota Stone.
Oh,
right?
wow.
And better Stone, right? Jack, did you have something to do with this? Maybe you all did. Pass it down. Let them look at it.
I thought it would be heavier, actually.
And there's a nice pen, a Nicollet County pen. It comes with it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, thank you.
Thanks for your
It's been a
service.
pleasure, of course. We'll talk more about that at lunch.
I think Mr. Crush has something for you too.
Yes,
Oh.
Mr. Chair, I've been teasing Commissioner Stenson for, well, 5 or 6 years now about his stance on having to give property tax money to the state of Minnesota and collect it for him, and I agree with him. And in 2009, staff actually made a large check so Commissioner Stenson could stand here and I believe give your speech on that. So I'm sending this home with you because it's been around about 10 times, and I said we gotta save it for Jim. So I didn't update it. Jackie would probably be able to look up and see what.
My intention was to stand out in the front steps of the old courthouse and have about 1,000 people out there.
You can still do that.
I could still do that, but anyway.
Anyways, you can hang that up in your house.
Hey, great. Good.
Cool.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Wondered where this was.
But we don't want that reflected.
Marie doesn't want to be part of this sign.
To the front of the courthouse.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay.
Thanks for your service,
Thank you,
Commissioner.
Jim. Yes.
Thanks. Thanks, Marie. Thanks,
And,
Jack.
and enjoy that retirement and all those travels.
Thanks, Denny. Thanks, John.
Thank you for your
Staff.
Thank you, Cousin Jim.
And Seth takes a lot of crap from me, I know, but, because he spends way too much money on our road system. But you guys willing to give him the money, right?
Well,
Jack?
in honor of your retirement, Commissioner, let's hear your last report to the board.
My last report to the board is that I've been looking forward to retirement. I will want to say that I met with Terry Morrow for about 2.5 hours a couple weeks ago, and I felt the weight taken off my shoulders as far as my responsibility after that meeting, and because I kind of thought that the transition was in process. And I'm sure that Terry will do a good job. And as far as any other kind of report, I avoided committee meetings like the plague during the month of December. I just thought, no, I don't have to go anymore. So I'm gonna miss the one in December 28th in New Ulm. I'm not gonna go to that. I'm not gonna go to the full
Thank
board
you,
there.
Jim.
Okay, thanks.
Marie?
Nothing out of the ordinary or unusual, put it that way.
John?
Oh, yes. Sat in at the FEMA meeting with Lafayette Township. Went with the rest of you to the township meeting thing in Nicollet. I went to a nitrate meeting in Sleepy Eye. Attended AMC with Jack and Denny. Did the budget and tax levy. Rush River meeting. Sat in on Gary Dames, Paul Torkelson listening session in New Ulm. Went to the social service meeting in Mankato with Mr. Kemp, and there was a big placard that says Jack Kohlers, but it didn't look like Jack Kohlers was there. Attended the Greater Mankato Growth Senate panel on energy, which was pretty good. It was what they're doing in Germany, and it was Senator France, Senator Rosen, and Senator Senjem on the committee up there, or whatever, the They were the speakers. Talk about energy policy, and I made it to Mary's retirement party the same day. So it was all county business from 6 in the morning till 3 in the afternoon.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Kemp?
I, like you, we gathered at the Township Officers meeting. I was also involved in the multi-county HRA meeting. Again, my esteemed colleagues, we gathered with our other esteemed colleagues throughout the state at the AMC State Conference, which was well attended. Actually, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan, but it was the largest attendance we've had in the last 8 years.
Yeah,
as
we
far
were
as total numbers. It was very well attended, so it appears that we're turning corner in truth and taxation hearing and other retirements and other meetings as described. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. TDS, CHS, oh wait, that's coming up. Township meeting, AMC annual, Truth and Taxation, Minnesota Valley Action Council, and attended a couple of employee retirements. Commissioner committee reports. We have the legislative AMC coming up. I believe that is in February or March.
February 13th and 14th.
Right. So if that can fit into your schedule, please consult your AMC spot in the internet. Approval of per diems and expenses. Chair will
move it.
We have a motion from Kemp and a second from Commissioner Stenson as he retires. Any other items on that? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, it's carried. Do we have any other items to come before the board? We need to announce that the commissioners will be meeting with retiring Commissioner Jim Stenson and his bride at the location.
3rd Street Tavern, I believe it's called.
That'll be happening within minutes.
Yep.
Do you have any items for us, Michelle?
No, I did have an opportunity to meet yesterday with other local county attorneys, with Attorney General-elect Ellison, to talk about what the needs of Southern Minnesota were from county attorneys' offices. So that was an interesting meeting to talk about those needs and look at what his proposing or thoughts were for moving forward for that office.
Very good. Thank you for reporting
Any
that.
surprises there?
No, it was nice to hear and have him reaffirm that the assistance the Attorney General's office has been able to provide to county attorneys' offices, especially in smaller counties, would be his intent to continue.
Great.
All right. Very good. Thank you for that report. If there is no other business to come before the board, we're adjourned. Thank you.